Maya Thompson's face throbbed as dried blood streaked across her jaw, the officer's fingers digging deeper into her wrist. "I was just buying groceries," she said, her voice cracking under the strain. Somewhere close, low-pitched sirens howled, a sound heavier than any squad car. The grip on her arm faltered. Military vehicles were pulling in, and leading them was Colonel Marcus Thompson. Just hours earlier, Maya had strolled through the aisles of Greenleaf Market, comparing produce under sterile lights. Her Howard University hoodie felt like armor in the upscale Nashville suburb where she and Marcus had recently settled. Oak Ridge Hills was all polished charm, tree-lined streets, curated lawns, and that quiet hostility that came without words. She felt it immediately. The guard tailing her wasn't subtle. He drifted between aisles, pretending to adjust shelves, but never once removed his gaze from her hands. She kept shopping. Sweet potatoes. Ginger. And in her mind, a mental map of the emergency craniotomy she had scheduled at the hospital that evening. Nashville Memorial's youngest chief of neurosurgery. Black. Female. Brilliant. She was halfway to checkout when a woman in high heels and entitlement whispered to the manager, gesturing discreetly. Maya caught enough of it. My purse. Medication. That woman. The manager, a man with receding blonde hair and too much certainty, stormed over like he'd just solved a mystery. "Come with me, ma'am," he ordered, skipping courtesy altogether. Maya looked up, confused. "What's this about?" Before he could respond, the woman stepped closer. "She took something from my bag. Prescription meds. I want it back, and I want her charged." Maya stayed composed. "I haven't touched your belongings. I'm a surgeon. Why would I steal pills?" He didn't blink. "We've contacted the authorities. They'll determine the truth." "I'll call my husband," Maya said, reaching slowly for her phone. "Don't move," he barked. "Hands where I can see them." Shoppers around her suddenly developed an intense interest in nutrition labels. Not a single voice rose in protest. 2 officers arrived with measured swagger. Officer Simmons, square-jawed and smug, walked past Maya and went straight to the manager. "What's going on?" The woman launched into a dramatic retelling, this time insisting she saw Maya pocket something. Officer Simmons finally turned. "Let's see your identification." "I'm Dr. Maya Thompson. I live nearby on Magnolia Lane." His partner, Officer Hansen, cut in. "Just show your ID. No speeches." She handed it over. "Nice address," Simmons muttered, clearly unimpressed. "Don't know many folks who look like you living there." "My husband is Colonel Marcus Thompson." "Sure he is," Simmons snapped. "Turn around." "For what? There's no evidence." "You're not following instructions. That's enough." Hansen spun her around and clamped the cuffs down hard. "They always say they're innocent." Maya's heart pounded. "I'm a brain surgeon. I need my hands." Hansen chuckled. "And I'm an astronaut." Cameras emerged. No one intervened. They all just watched. Maya's fingers ached inside the metal. "I told my husband I'd be home 20 minutes ago." Simmons leaned close. "If he's smart, he'll stay out of this." And just like that, the weight returned. Decades of being brilliant yet unseen. Degrees, titles, property. None of it had shielded her. But then she heard it. Diesel engines. Tactical formation. Boots hitting pavement with military rhythm. She turned her head and saw Marcus. And everything was about to change. Karen couldn't meet Marcus's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "But I might have misjudged." Captain Rodriguez, silent until now, stepped forward holding a military-grade device. "Colonel, base command's aware. General Phillips asked if you require backup." Gasps moved through the crowd like wind. The moment had shifted. Marcus turned back to Officer Simmons, expression cool. "What evidence justified detaining my wife in public?" Simmons stiffened. "We were investigating when you arrived." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "So no proof, just assumption. That's your method?" Maya touched his forearm gently. "I have surgeries scheduled." He nodded. She needs to be at the hospital. Let's end this. Officer Hansen looked relieved. Simmons held firm. Still need to finish the process. Marcus gestured subtly. Lieutenant Williams raised his comm device. Lieutenant Williams, we have an incident involving Dr. Maya Thompson at Greenleaf Market. Colonel Thompson requests Chief Donovan's presence. The names did what handcuffs couldn't. Shake power. Simmons blinked. Hansen stepped back. Minutes later, another siren. Not panic, authority. Police Chief Richard Donovan emerged from his vehicle, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. He scanned the gathering. Military uniforms, law enforcement, phones filming from every angle. Colonel Thompson, he said, didn't expect to see you before next month's council. We can talk here, Chief. The public deserves transparency. The chief followed the cue. Dr. Thompson, I understand there was a misunderstanding. Maya stood steady. I was accused of theft. No one listened. I was cuffed before I could speak. Donovan turned to his officers. I'm sure protocol was followed. Marcus's voice was calm, but surgical. Protocol includes probable cause, not profiling. Silence followed. Then Rodriguez returned with Maya's cart and car keys. Her vehicle holds surgical equipment. No sign of theft. Simmons shifted. We may need to inspect her car. Not necessary, Donovan said, voice clipped. Karen began backing away again. Donovan cut her off. Ma'am, did you accuse this woman of stealing? Karen hesitated. I thought she did. Can I see your purse? She opened it. Her medication. Still there. Maya's eyes narrowed. So, what made you assume I took anything? Karen looked at the ground. I felt threatened when she came near. The crowd hushed. Nothing more needed saying. Brad Stevens, desperate, held out a store tablet. Security video shows everything. They watched. Maya never touched the cart, never even came close. Donovan adjusted his belt. Well, this seems resolved. Marcus didn't flinch. You call this resolved? She was humiliated, restrained, accused. You call that inconvenience? Donovan's jaw tightened. Colonel, I'm not requesting. I'm informing. Formal complaints will be filed. Civil rights violations, false reporting, and public endangerment. Lieutenant Williams stepped up beside them. 17 locals have submitted statements about similar misconduct by these officers. Brad paled. We'd like to offer store credit or... Maya cut in. Mr. Stevens, you think my dignity has a dollar amount? Meanwhile, Officer Hansen leaned toward a teen bystander. You should delete that footage. Williams caught it. Chief Donovan, he said aloud, holding up his phone. Your officer is instructing people to erase evidence. Shall I log this with legal? The chief's face paled. The truth was filmed, recorded, and no longer ignorable. The man she'd just saved was being wheeled into the ambulance as cameras kept rolling. The very officers who had restrained her moments ago stood frozen, now helpless spectators. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Maya's phone rang. This is Dr. Thompson. I'll be there in 20. She turned to Marcus, urgency etched across her face. 16-year-old, subdural bleed, or teams prepped, but the on-call surgeons delayed. Marcus didn't hesitate. Chief Donovan, he said firmly. My wife needs an emergency escort. Time is critical. The chief nodded after a pause. Consider it arranged. Marcus didn't blink. I suggest Officers Simmons and Hansen escort her. Priority 1. For a second, Donovan hesitated, but he understood the message. Officers, he said sharply. You'll lead the motorcade. Now. Simmons's mouth opened, but the chief's stare silenced him. That's an order. Maya stepped into the cruiser. The same vehicle that had transported her in handcuffs was now her ride to a life-saving operation. As they pulled away, Marcus whispered, I'll take care of the rest. Inside the back seat, Maya kept her focus ahead. She was used to contradiction, how she could be seen as a threat in the morning and a hero by afternoon. Officer Hansen glanced back through the mirror. We'll get you there fast, Dr. Thompson. She met his eyes without flinching. Right now, that teenager's survival is all that matters. Let's move. They activated sirens, clearing traffic. For 10 minutes, the city made way for the woman it had just misjudged. At the ER entrance, Nashville Memorial staff stood ready. Maya, Dr. Richardson, the hospital CEO, ran to the car. We've prepped 3 ORs, scans are waiting. As she stepped out, staff welcomed her with the kind of reverence that had been absent earlier that day. She turned briefly to the officers. Thank you for the escort. There was no sarcasm in her voice, just precision. Officer Hansen lowered his head, stung by the grace in her restraint. Inside, she scrubbed in. The teenager's skull fracture was severe, but treatable. Marcus's voice echoed in her head. They need to witness what we're made of. Maya entered the OR surgeon. Warrior. Healer. No bias could strip that from her. While she worked, footage from Greenleaf Market exploded across social media. Multiple angles showed everything: false accusation, restraint, the public shaming, and then her saving a man's life. Justice for Dr. Thompson surged across platforms. Doctors, veterans, students, and celebrities reposted. Military families rallied. The country was watching. In the waiting room, Marcus met with civil rights attorney Elijah Washington. I've submitted emergency motions to preserve all digital evidence, Washington said, flipping through files. Body cams, store tapes, even officer communications, it's all covered. Rodriguez had captured the entire standoff. Williams had documented the attempted video tampering. This is deeper than one bad stop, Elijah muttered, showing Marcus complaint records. Simmons has 7 closed cases, excessive force all ignored. Hansen's under review for another incident. Outside, cameras gathered. Inside, hospital leadership rallied. Maya's one of the best we've got, said Richardson, handing Marcus coffee. We'll back her every step. Greenleaf Market issued a formal apology online. Brad Stevens had already been fired. Karen Whitfield's identity went public within hours. Her real estate agency suspended her, citing conduct under review. Support flooded in. But a dark current swirled below. Anonymous messages defending the officers, blaming Maya, twisting facts. After 4 hours, Maya emerged from surgery. Stable. Prognosis looks good, she told Marcus. He stood. No words, just a quiet nod. They had said enough with their actions. In the locker room, Maya caught her reflection. The bruise on her cheek was darker now. She touched it once, then turned away. You were incredible in there, said a colleague softly. Everyone's talking. Maya exhaled. Let them. I have work to do. Maya sat at the edge of the bed, her hands shaking, breath shallow from the call's lingering venom. They're not backing off, she said quietly. Marcus took her hand, his voice like flint. They never do. But they don't have what we do. What's that? The truth, he said. And we're not going to whisper it. We'll make sure it's heard. By sunrise, the full machinery of the police union had swung into motion. Local news anchors recited lines clearly fed to them. Routine procedure, non-compliance, an unfortunate misunderstanding. Online forums lit up with staged outrage. Commenters blamed Maya's attitude and accused Marcus of using his military rank to bully officers. It didn't stop its spin. 3 mornings later, they found a slur sprayed across their garage door in red. The paint was still wet. When they called it in, it took nearly 2 hours for a patrol car to arrive. The officer barely looked up from his notebook. Probably teenagers, not much to go on. He didn't photograph the scene until Marcus calmly suggested he should. Even then, the officer snapped a few half-hearted pictures before leaving without apology. The assault shifted to Maya's career next. At the hospital, 3 of her upcoming surgeries had been reassigned. No explanation, no warning. Dr. Richardson called her into his office, his concern evident. I've received 3 anonymous complaints about your conduct. Nothing specific, just concerns. I'm required to document them, but I don't believe a word of it. Maya nodded. Then let's document the retaliation too. Meanwhile, Marcus was summoned to Fort Campbell. Colonel Frank Harrison waited in his office, posture rigid, tone clipped. There are whispers, Thompson. about military personnel intervening in civilian matters, about perception. Marcus stood at ease, his face unreadable. "Sir, I responded to a crisis involving my wife. Captain Rodriguez and Lieutenant Williams were off duty and acted voluntarily." Harrison's lips tightened. "Perception still matters. You don't want this attached to your record." But outside those walls, their support base was expanding. Walter Jenkins, still recovering, rallied First Baptist Church for a candlelight vigil. Over 300 people came, neighbors, veterans, former patients. They brought signs, prayers, and promises to stand beside the Thompsons. One evening, Maya received a message from an investigative journalist named Zoe Carter. "I've been documenting police patterns in Oak Ridge Hills. Your case isn't isolated. It fits a pattern." They agreed to meet at Washington's office. Zoe arrived with maps, data, and receipts. "In this area, black residents are 7 times more likely to be stopped than white ones, despite making up less than 4% of the population. And guess which 2 officers are mentioned in the most complaints?" She turned the screen. "Simmons, Hanson." Zoe added, "They're on patrol at the request of the HOA." Marcus dug deeper, pulling housing data through his military networks. "The family who tried to buy our house 3 years ago? Black. Sale blocked after last-minute neighborhood objections." The pattern was no longer a pattern. It was a design. Then the citations started. Trash bins 1 inch out of place. A mailbox painted the wrong shade of gray. Passive-aggressive notes about lawn length. All with HOA letterhead, all signed anonymously. At the hospital, Maya's colleagues formed a silent defense. Dr. Carter organized a buddy system. No one let her walk to the garage alone. One night, Carter whispered, "Off-duty cops at the bar are talking about making your life hard. We're watching your back." Then came the anonymous message, "Drop the complaints, or your patients won't be the only ones at risk." It hit Maya like a punch. She sent it to Washington immediately. "What would you do?" she asked Marcus quietly. "If the truth puts everyone you protect in danger?" He looked at her and said, "Then we fight smarter." At the edge of the community center stage, Deacon Walter Jenkins stood straighter than his doctors had advised. Weeks after his collapse, he now addressed a full house, his voice seasoned with age but sharpened by conviction. "We're not just here for one woman," he told the crowd. "We're here for a community that's been told too many times. Not yet, not you, not here." It was Walter who had organized the upcoming civil testimony, and while it carried the name community hearing, everyone knew what it really was: the beginning of a reckoning. Behind closed doors, evidence continued to build with quiet ferocity. Captain Rodriguez handed Marcus an envelope marked Classified Internal Review, Military Police Division. Inside, the military's findings spoke volumes. Body cam footage from Officers Simmons and Hanson had been altered. 18 full minutes were missing. A surgical removal that included the most aggressive moments of the arrest. But that wasn't the end of it. "Both served in MP units before joining Nashville PD," Rodriguez said. "But they left with other than honorable discharges. Somehow that didn't make it onto their applications. Fraudulent credentials, suppressed records." Another domino fell. Lieutenant Williams had been running his own probe in parallel, following the money. What he uncovered connected the police department, the Oak Ridge Hills HOA, and Greenleaf Market in a web of favors and under-the-table deals. Officers assigned to upscale preservation received unreported perks, gift cards, housing allowances, incident bonuses for deterring so-called disturbances. Every strand led back to the same group of men. George Simmons, desperate to contain the fallout, made a misstep. He approached Williams at a downtown cafe, assuming the lieutenant could be swayed. "You strike me as the kind of man who values order," Simmons said, easing an envelope across the table like it was a handshake. Williams didn't touch it. "Is this your idea of gratitude for military service?" he asked, already knowing the recording device beneath his coat was capturing every word. Simmons faltered. "I'm just asking for understanding. There's a bigger picture here." And now, the whole picture was coming into view. The turning point came unexpectedly. Officer Hanson's 8-year-old son was brought into Nashville Memorial after a cycling accident. Head trauma. severe bleeding. Only one neurosurgeon was on call. Maya. Without hesitation, she scrubbed in. Hours later, she stepped into the waiting room, still in surgical scrubs. "Your son's stable. The swelling's down. He'll walk, talk, and live a full life." Hansen could barely look at her. "Thank you," he said, as if the words themselves burned. She gave a quiet nod. "Follow-ups start next week. My team will handle everything." Her voice was clinical, but beneath it was something harder to ignore. Proof of a professionalism his actions hadn't deserved. Meanwhile, Chief Donovan could no longer hold the line. After reviewing body cam tampering, HOA corruption, and the whistleblower's revelations, he reached out privately. "I've spent 27 years believing in this badge," he told the Thompsons, "but your files, your recordings, they show something else entirely." He slid a flash drive across Elijah Washington's desk. Internal emails, directives to stall your vandalism report, orders to find something on you too. He paused. "You didn't get this from me." It was the final piece. That evening, as Maya reviewed the compiled evidence, she closed her laptop and leaned back. "This was never just about me." Marcus nodded. "It's about who gets to be protected and who gets policed." Now the Department of Justice was watching, and the nation was about to hear everything. Inside the Justice Department's hearing room, the air had shifted. What began as a personal story of wrongful arrest now echoed with the voices of many. Community leaders, doctors, pastors, attorneys, each adding a thread to the larger fabric of systemic failure. And finally, transformation. George Simmons' contradictions on the stand unraveled any last defense his legal team tried to mount. But it was the voices of those impacted, ordinary citizens treated as threats in their own city, that carried the greatest weight. When Walter Jenkins testified about rerouting his errands to avoid suspicion after 37 years of civic service, the silence in the chamber felt sacred. Doctors, educators, students, parents. They told of traffic stops that escalated without cause, of suspicion, while shopping in the very neighborhoods they paid taxes to live in. These weren't outliers, they were patterns. Maya's final turn at the stand wasn't emotional, it was surgical. "Black excellence has become our currency for basic humanity," she said, her tone composed but cutting. "But even perfection isn't a guarantee. That's the lie we're told to keep us silent." Across the room, Officers Simmons and Hansen sat cold and divided, their earlier unity shattered under pressure. One blamed the other. Their attorney tried weakly to redirect attention toward procedure, but the walls had closed in. George Simmons had already been removed from the chamber, this time for good, after making threatening comments to a federal marshal. Even now his power crumbled, he couldn't help reaching for intimidation. The Department of Justice ruled decisively. The case had revealed not just misconduct, but an embedded culture of discrimination spanning years, institutions, and positions of power. A full federal consent decree followed. Reforms, investigations, civilian oversight, and mandatory transparency for every future case. 6 months later, Nashville looked different. Simmons and Hansen? Fired, indicted, and awaiting trial. George Simmons? Facing multiple felony charges including conspiracy and misuse of law enforcement infrastructure. Karen Whitfield? Sentenced to community service at First Baptist Church, under the eye of the very people she once saw as threats. And Oak Ridge Hills? No longer the enclave of quiet exclusion. An inclusion council now led by Walter Jenkins had begun dismantling a decades-old HOA regime. They kept the name but changed the meaning. Maya hadn't stopped working. At the hospital, her mentorship program for Black med students flourished. "Excellence is still needed," she told her mentees, "but now we're building systems where excellence isn't the price of dignity." She restructured emergency triage policies. Staff no longer saw arrest records at intake. Patient charts were redesigned to eliminate biasing details. Other hospitals took note. Marcus was promoted to full colonel and tapped to lead a national initiative on bridging gaps between military families and local police departments. His approach was collaborative, but unflinching. The scars lingered. Maya still flinched when an officer approached from behind in public. Marcus still scanned every car that idled too long near their driveway. But they stayed. "This is our home," Marcus had said. "We won't be moved out by the same fear we fought our whole lives." They hosted a neighborhood barbecue, the kind they never would have considered that first month. This time, the lawn was full. Black families, white neighbors, immigrant families, kids running, plates clinking, stories exchanged, no speeches, just presence. 1 year later, Maya returned to Greenleaf Market. A different manager greeted her. A different staff. Same aisles. But this time, no eyes followed her but one elderly woman who stepped forward nervously. "Dr. Thompson?" she asked. "You operated on my grandson. You saved him." Maya smiled gently. "Glad he's doing well." This time she wasn't watched with suspicion. She was recognized. Seen. For what she truly was. Not a problem, not a threat, not a suspect. A healer, a leader, a woman who helped change a city. And the frame on the Thompsons' wall? It didn't hold bitterness. It held proof. That dignity, once demanded, had finally arrived.